The Indiana Hoosiers, coming fresh off a 63-10 drumming of the then ninth-ranked Illinois Fighting Illini, travel to Kinnick Stadium in a new, unfamiliar, and as Curt Cignetti himself said, a tougher challenge than last week in facing off against the Iowa Hawkeyes, who are fresh off a win against Rutgers on the road, where I think Gronowki built some confidence, and that was a Friday night game, so they have an extra day of rest here. This is going to be a 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff, 2:30 p.m. local time kickoff. Before we resume this segment, some great and free ways to support this channel are liking the video, watching it all the way through, commenting your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear your analysis, sharing the video, subscribing to the channel, and also hitting the notification bell. That way you can get notified when we go live or release new content. And don't just hit the notification bell for the channel. That's very helpful. But what's also helpful and free and useful to you, if you are a diehard fan of a specific team and want to get notifications whenever I make content about a specific team, not just my content in general, well, we have playlists for every Power 4 college football team, so the notification bell in any of those playlists you are interested in. If you want to support the channel financially, there are ways to do so in the description, and you can sign up as a paid member. In Iowa City, going to be 80 degrees about at kickoff, 9-mile-per-hour winds. The spread last week was just Indiana minus 2.5. It's jumped up to minus 4.5 in favor of the Hoosiers, and I'm going to check really quick, but I get the feeling as if the line might be growing. Yes, it is. It's on FanDuel. It's already at 8.5. Actually, it just moved up to 8.5. A lot of sharps, a lot of people, not just the public, but people with money and the know-how love Indiana in the spot. But let's investigate 7.5 at some places still. Let's investigate if that's actually the case here, because Iowa, I think with the offense they have right now, with Gronowki, look, I saw it a little bit against Iowa State. UMass, obviously, everyone saw it, but it's UMass. And then I really saw it against Rutgers. Now, Rutgers, again, is a pretty bad defense. Indiana's defense kind of honestly reminds me of Iowa's of old. A lot of underrated NFL athletes who were 3 stars or 2 stars or 1 stars who were developed into playing like 4 or 5-star players. Illinois' offense just got crushed, got destroyed by that Indiana defense. And that wasn't in a flukish way. That was in a very intentional, purposeful, sustainable way that they did it. Indiana's defense is ridiculously good, but all that being said, Gronowki threw some balls, touch passes, even had a deep shot, had some other short passes where at times, yes, he messed up, but he is clearly Iowa's most talented, gifted quarterback since Nate Stanley, late 2010s. And this is a huge game for Iowa, too. This is a program game for Iowa, I think. Indiana has been under you. In fact, they've been under the house that is the Big Ten. They've been dead and buried for decades. And now Curt Cignetti comes in last year, rebuilds the roster, rebuilds the program. They start winning. They gain momentum. End of the year power ratings and efficiency-wise, they're top 10. Right now, they're bordering on top 5 in those. Right now, they have a 0.419 points per play margin. And they've played a tougher opponent in Illinois than a lot of teams have this year. A lot of teams have still played opponents that are worse than that Illinois team that Indiana just beat 63-10. Iowa's a points per play margin of 0.220, but much like Indiana, they've at least faced a test. Rutgers on the road was a test. Iowa State on the road is a test. This is their first test at home. Defense is a little bit worse than it's been, usually under Phil Parker. The offense, though, is scoring 0.497 points per play to IU's 0.635. Gronowki, that rushing offense, that offensive line, even Iowa's receivers, Sam Phillips, Jacob Gill, Seth Anderson, KJ Parker, Caden Weegan, they've improved from last year. Oftentimes when returning production is that bad at wide receiver, and believe me, Iowa's receiver core was that bad last year, oftentimes it doesn't really get better. Case in point, Michigan State secondary when they all came back for 2022. This wide receiver core, I think, at least got a little bit better. I think they have more athleticism, better hands, etc. Trevor Locke, Bo Steffens, Logan Jones, Cade Piper, Jennings Dunker. It's a great offensive line. And then Terrell Washington Jr. has really emerged. Same with Xavier Williams. We knew about Jason Patterson. It's a deep running back room. Well coached, I would add. And Gronowski adds an element to that. I've been impressed, honestly, over these past few weeks with the Iowa offense. I was even impressed with it against Iowa State and how they took advantage of some plays and penalties. And in the second half, they went on some long drives against what I think is a pretty good Iowa State defense and the strength of that Cyclone team. Unfortunately lost, but it was by 3 on the road. And the way they lost it, I think, suggests they're actually better than Iowa State. They were just on the road, and Iowa State started off faster and had the better quarterback in that game, and still do. I just don't think to the same margin. So Iowa State won, kudos to them. But Iowa's a pretty good team. They're probably underrated in the public's view here. I think that their trench play, including the defensive line and special teams, are X factors for the Hawkeyes. For Indiana, it's Fernando Mendoza. It's an offensive line that features Carter Smith, Pat Coogan, Drew Evans, Bray Lynch, and Khalil Benson. It is a receiver core with E.J. Williams Jr., Omar Cooper Jr., and Elijah Surratt. And then you got Kobe Martin, Kalen Black, and Roman Hemby. And Riley Nowakowski, who got a long touchdown against Illinois last week on a screen pass. This is a wonderful, uber-efficient offense that Iowa will be tested by here in this game. And that's why I'm super excited to see it and to watch it, because Iowa has the best defensive line they've played all season long. They probably have a better secondary than the secondary Illinois played with for the majority of the game, though it's pretty close. And Iowa's linebackers, they're not as good as last year's, but I've been impressed with their tackling, and they keep improving every week. Not perfect. The defense overall right now by efficiency metrics is worse than last year's defense. That's something I quite frankly agree with, but I still think it's a Phil Parker coached unit. The defensive line's the strength of this team, and Indiana relies a lot on their offensive line playing well in order to run that offense, because it's very RPO based. The run is heavily involved. Your quarterback needs to be comfortable, needs to have time to make that correct read, whether or not to pull, hand it off, who to throw it to. It's a very intricate system that helps them destroy teams with similar talent. But if one part of the system is off, as we saw against Old Dominion or last year in the big games against Ohio State and Notre Dame, a lot can be off. If Indiana plays clean here, I don't see much of a path for Iowa to win. So clean doesn't even mean they win the trenches. Clean just means they don't turn it over. Iowa can win their D-line versus IU's O-line, and if Indiana simply is willing to struggle and ugly it up and not turn it over, I still think Indiana wins and probably covers here. The path for Iowa to win is Gronowski being able to hit downfield passes, being accurate, poised, and comfortable, Iowa being able to run the football, and Indiana likely losing the turnover battle, or maybe they lose special teams in an absolutely major way. That is the pathway for Iowa to win this football game. They have to have the better offensive line. They have to have the better defensive line. Gronowski has to do his best to match Fernando Mendoza, which, look, he's not going to totally match him. Mendoza right now could be QB1 in the upcoming NFL draft. He's playing at a phenomenal level. When you complete 91.3% of your throws against an Illinois secondary that, look, when banged up, is not as good as when it has starters, but he played against the starters for much of the game until they slowly got hurt, and their backups aren't horrible. I mean, Illinois has had a reputation under Bielema of producing good DBs, both in Ryan Walter's system, and this current system under Aaron Henry, I think, has also produced great defensive backs. Unfortunately, they were just injured for parts of that Indiana game, or out for targeting, which just totally stupid. Targeting should never result in an ejection, with rare instances. If it's intentional and unsportsmanlike, yeah. But in general, the state of targeting is broken. You'll probably see an example in this game, since both defenses tackle well, they hit hard, and often tackling well and playing hard. The line between that and the targeting rule is very, very slim in a very stupid, asinine way. But Iowa needs so much to go right for them in order to not just win the game, but I would argue even compete in the game. And this is where I lean Indiana pretty strongly here, I would say. I think that they are demonstratively better in passing offense, in passing defense, in rushing defense. Rushing offense, I do not think they're uber better than Iowa. That is one of Iowa's epic strengths. There's an argument to make that Iowa could have a better rushing offense. Not overall. Indiana's is better overall. But depending on the circumstance, you may want to prefer Iowa's. Depending. I think just with how Gronowski's more mobile and built to be more of a runner than Mendoza, and Iowa does have a very strong offensive line and deep running back room that at this point might be deeper than Indiana's. You may want Iowa's rushing attack again, depending on the circumstances. But overall, Indiana's roster is better at every position or matches Iowa close enough at every position to where I don't think this will be very competitive. I think Indiana's staff is better. I think that Iowa special teams is slightly better, but very slightly. And when you factor in development and how they've played, I think Indiana's much more talented here. So I am going with Indiana to win, and I'm going with Indiana to cover that 7.5 point line. I think Indiana pulls away in the second quarter or third quarter. First quarter will be competitive enough scoring-wise, I believe, or maybe it won't be. But I think at a point it will be competitive enough scoring-wise, maybe the first drive or two where you think, okay, maybe Iowa can hold on, but you're watching and you're thinking intuitively, yeah, if things don't change, Indiana's going to really put it on here. And that's what I think they're going to do. I think that they're not going to put it on in the way they did against Illinois because you're not at home. You don't have the nighttime matchup. I think that Indiana doesn't match up as well with Iowa as they do Illinois, but I still think they will win by multiple scores, and they will already have almost a guarantee cover of the spread by halftime, and from there they'll pull away. They'll continue to run up the score a little bit through the third quarter, or if it is competitive for longer than that, early fourth, and eventually I think you'll see the backups as you have for every Indiana game. No disrespect to Iowa. I think Iowa's a good team. I've just said since really January, February, that Indiana's going to be better than they were last year, and they're going to do a better job in big games and big moments because they've upgraded their roster talent, they retain their staff, consequently more of those players will get more of that elite development, and I think Cignetti has learned things from last year as a coach. Also, Mendoza against Illinois finally checked all the boxes for being better than Rourke, where doesn't just have a higher ceiling, he has a higher floor too, in addition to also being mobile, which adds different elements to his game. I just think Indiana's that good, especially against teams that don't have top 5, top 10 talent rosters. We'll see. I have a sneaking feeling they could be good enough to overcome those and actually scale to any opponent they play this year. Just a feeling. Not saying I think that way. But I think in this game where Iowa just does not have enough of a talent edge to cause scaling issues for Indiana, I think the Hoosiers win pretty big. Thank you so much for watching this segment on College Football with Sam. Before we close out here, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this video around, comment your thoughts and analysis down below so I can read them and reply to them if I have the time. Members get priority replies, but I try to reply to everyone. And also hit the notification bell for the channel and also for any team playlists you are interested in. If you want to support the channel financially, you can always super chat me in the comment section, but I prefer that you sign up as a paid member of the Patreon page or as a YouTube member, or that you can purchase some wonderful merchandise to represent us. I'll see you all soon and have a fantastic